So why do people fall prey to bias if their conscious values oppose it? Well, stereotypes and biases are built into the fabric of our culture, and we all learn them from the media and our social environments, starting at a very young age. Children as young as 4 years old can articulate stereotypes about different groups, such as white people are like this and black people are like that. For example, someone recently told me about a time she went to a cafe, and when 3 black men sat at the table nearby, her 5-year-old exclaimed, "Look, Mommy, all the bad guys sat at that table." I'm sure this mother never explicitly taught her daughter to make that kind of assumption, but kids pick up on these kinds of stereotypes in our culture. Let me share some examples of how this happens. This is a commercial for baby formula. See if you notice anything.
Since their very first days, your baby starts to write their future.
This commercial sets up the idea that little girls can grow up to be ballerinas, and little boys can grow up to be mathematicians and scientists. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a dancer or with being a scientist. The idea is that we should set up these opportunities equally for kids, no matter their gender. Imagine that you have to buy a present for your niece or nephew. If you picked one of these 2 books based on gender, you'd end up giving very different messages to your niece versus your nephew. The book clearly targeted at girls encourages them to focus on how they look, but the book for boys encourages them to perform well in school. Now, let's look at a race-related example. Check out these 2 news clippings from Hurricane Katrina. The 2 sentences are almost identical, except that the black man looted, but the white people just found food at a grocery store. This perpetuates the stereotype in our minds that black people are criminals. These examples were chosen because they strongly highlight systematic patterns in the media. Research consistently shows that the media characterizes people in ways that match stereotypes. For example, based on national crime statistics in the US, white people commit more than twice as many violent crimes as black people. But if you look at news coverage, you see reporting of many more crimes committed by black people, because when crimes are committed by white people, the news is less likely to report on it at all, and if they do report on it, they're less likely to show a picture of the white person. This pattern leads people's brains to learn a statistical association that says black people commit more violent crimes than white people, even though it's the exact opposite of what real crime statistics tell us. And that's what a stereotype is. It's when your brain has learned an association between a social group and some other attribute, such as criminality. And these stereotypes get reinforced over time, repeatedly. They become stronger and more automatic in your brain. They become habitual. And all this happens long before kids' brains develop enough to have the capacity for moral reasoning that can question those kinds of thoughts and ideas. By the time they have the ability to regulate these stereotypic thoughts, bias has already become the default habitual response. These are very ordinary, pervasive cognitive processes. Anyone who's socialized in a culture with these stereotypes will be vulnerable to unintentional biases. American civil rights leader Jesse Jackson once shared his experience with unintentional bias, noting that there is nothing more painful to me at this stage in my life than to walk down the street and hear footsteps and start thinking about robbery. Then I look around and see someone white and feel relieved. Many people, black and white, report that when they notice a black person walking toward them on the street, they feel nervous and sometimes even cross the street to avoid walking past the black person. Research consistently shows that men and women, white people and people of color, young and old people, are all susceptible to stereotypes and unintentional biases. So if stereotyping and unintentional bias are habits of mind, what can we do to break the habits? Have you ever tried to break a habit? Just like other habits, breaking bias habits requires a few things. To make any kind of change, first, you need motivation. You have to care about changing the habit. No one else can make that decision for you. Working to reduce bias has to be something you think is important and something you're committed to doing. You also need awareness of how the habit plays out. In the case of bias, this means tuning in to the different ways stereotypes and biases can influence your thoughts and behaviors. Then, what steps can you take that will be effective to reduce bias? You need tools to help you break the habit. And no habit gets broken overnight. It takes effort over time to disrupt well-learned habits. The next module will help develop greater awareness of how bias plays out. And then the third module will teach you tools to overcome bias. The motivation and effort, however, have to come from you. If you take what you learn here to heart, you'll be able to break these habits and reduce your potential for bias. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. To be notified of when we post new videos, click the bell icon to turn on notifications. You can also go to biashabit.com to learn more, to donate, to sign up for our newsletter, or to contact us about evidence-based bias and DEI trainings. Thank you.